What's good, everybody? Welcome into Believe in Kentucky. My name is Vinny Hardy. My guy Cole Park is actually at Kroger Field, another complex right now, so he'll be back on our next episode. Got a big time fill in today on this episode. Been trying to get this lady on for a minute. Back in the day, for the oldest listen for a while, it used to be Believe in Auburn, just like we believe in Kentucky.
Mhm.
They broadened out to SEC State of Mind. We've had J Cam on here a couple times. We got the other half of SEC State of Mind. Taylor Beth Davis is in here.
Woo,
Taylor, how you
woo.
doing?
I am doing so well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm sure J Cam was great and all, but I'll try and top it because as much as I love my guy, we are competitive over there on SEC State of Mind. So I was very eager to get on your show, and I appreciate you having me.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So the first time J Cam was on, it was the last time Kentucky was at Auburn. That time
Okay.
when Chris Rodriguez scored and y'all didn't call it, you know that one?
Yes, of course. Got to bring that up. Got to bring that up. Good start.
He was laying in the end zone and y'all act like y'all didn't see nothing. But
Yes,
anyway.
I know. I know exactly what you're talking about.
But appreciate you hopping on. So for just a quick second, for those that don't know you, tell our listeners about you, and for those who haven't seen you on the TV, tell them about who you are and what you do and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So I am a podcast host with Jason Campbell on SEC State of Mind, but I'm a sideline reporter for ESPN. So I have been covering college football, college gymnastics, some college baseball, softball for ESPN for 7 years now as a reporter, but I've been with the company since I graduated from Auburn in 2014. So I started on the production side of things and then made my way into a reporter role, which I absolutely love and get to be right in the midst of the action, which plays directly into my podcast host role as well. So just a sports girly through and through, if you can't tell. And I feel super, super blessed that I don't consider my job a job. I consider my job a passion, which I'm very lucky to say.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So born and raised in Alabama, you went to Auburn or?
Yeah, born and raised, small town, about an hour south of Birmingham, super small town. And then I went to Auburn and was there from 2010 to 2014. So my freshman year was Cam Newton National Championship, and my senior year was Kick Six and Prayer of Jordan Hare. And so I bookended perfectly. Sophomore, junior year, we don't talk about as much, but freshman and senior year were iconic, literally. So was super fortunate, loved my time at Auburn. And then, yeah, I began my career in sports television with ESPN in the Charlotte office, which is where the SEC network is housed, but it launched the year that I graduated. So I moved to Charlotte, was there for about 6.5 years. I also worked as a studio host for the Carolina Panthers, hence that football. And had a brief stint in Kansas City where I was the team reporter for the Royals. So I worked in MLB as well. And now I live in Nashville and work full-time for ESPN.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So what was your first game as a sideline reporter?
Vinny, no one ever asks me this story, and it is wild because my first game ever was at Virginia, University of Virginia. And let me tell you, scared doesn't even begin to cover it. I was freaking the freak out. I was terrified. And I knew everyone kept telling me, you just need to get your first on-camera hit out of the way and you'll settle in. Because, I mean, this was, seriously, I have dreamt of this my entire life. And I'm about to hold the mic with an ESPN logo and talking to a camera on the sideline of a football game. It's my dream coming to life.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm shaking, I'm freaking out during pregame warmups, whatever. There is a lightning strike that happens, but it is close enough that Disney's rules require all on-field roles, cameramen, reporter, audio, parab, we have to leave the field. But it was far enough that the game could continue. So I had to go to the truck while the game started and sit there in my nervousness while the game began. And I didn't get to go out there until almost halftime because of some weird Disney rule. But once I got out there, did my first interview at halftime, everybody was right. I did settle in and the nerves went away. But I'm a very faith-driven person. And I was like, God, what in the world are you doing to me? Like, I am as nervous as they come. And now I just have to sit in a truck and wait on the lightning to pass. But it was a funny story that I get to tell. And then my second game ever was actually at Auburn. So that one, it was a pretty full circle moment to go back there, the place that prepared me for this job. So it was a funny entrance into this job.
Yeah, that is amazing. It's just like it's like they iced the kicker for the whole first half, basically.
Perfection. That is exactly what it was. They iced me real good. But 7 years later, I think I've gotten the hang of it a little bit. I learn something new every year, though. That's what I can say.
Yeah, for sure. Tell us about going viral, the whole Drake thing. Let's go ahead and hit that real quick too.
Wow, my guy did his research over here. All right, Vinny, let's talk about it, because when I tell you got me comfy over here now that we're talking about this stuff. I laid back real quick. The backlash that I got for that blew my mind. I was like, the internet is the worst place in the world. And it's unfortunate that so much of our career resides on the internet. But it was pregame, week 1. It did not happen during the game. So everyone, I got a lot of heat because the tweet said I didn't know where I was, which was ridiculous and misleading. It was during pregame warmups and the DJ was just messing around with me. But I, as Southern and small town Alabama as I am, your girl loves rap music, and I listen to hip hop and rap. That's what I listen to. And he was playing some bangers, and I just happened to know all the lyrics. And it took off in a way I didn't expect. And of course, J-Cam wouldn't let me live it down. But I think if you are not having fun working college football, you're in the wrong freaking industry. I mean, we are not. At the end of the day, it is entertainment. I'm not a doctor. I'm not being able to have some fun out there, I think is warranted. And it was week 1 kicking off the season, and the DJ was playing some fire hits. What do you want from me?
There you go. It was in the moment.
Exactly. And it was, we got to settle in too as media members. Like it takes, you got to work out the nerves and the overthinking, and some Drake music will do that for you. So why not?
Absolutely. So you say J-Cam gives you grief. So let's flip the script a little bit, because your boy, you always getting him about like pronunciation and grammar and stuff like that. And he's an articulate dude. He's on the Auburn Radio Network, and you play quarterback, you have to be articulate to get the plays conveyed to the guys in the huddle and all that. But there's always something where you are able to get him about some wordage and some linguistic stuff.
Every week, Vinny. And I'm going to tell you one that I am devastated that we don't have recorded. And our producer, Lindsay, and I texted about it the other day because man, it would have been gold. But it was before we hit record and we were on StreamYard. And this was a few weeks ago. And we were talking about different coaches. He was trying to talk about Alex Golesh, who ironically is now Auburn's head football coach.
Yes.
He called him Alex Goldfish. And I was like, wait, run that back. What'd you just say? He was like, in his last name, Goldfish. I was like, you're joking, right? You're absolutely joking. He definitely minces some names. Names are not his strong suit. Now, obviously, with the Auburn call, you've got one roster. You learn it over the season. But when we start talking about the landscape of college football, I mean, he called Kurt Signetti, Cunetti. Every week, I'm like, I have to play translator for Jason Campbell. But Lord, I love him. And he seriously knows. So I have learned so much, being a co-host with him. He knows ball so well. So if I just have to tighten up the pronunciation of names, that I can handle that.
Exactly. Yeah, that Signetti, that was all timer right there for sure. So hey, we throwing him under the bus, but had to get that in.
He takes it on the chin every time. He gets a kick out of it too.
And before we get football, I'm gonna hit small town Alabama because I got I got connections to Alabama myself. Even though I was born and raised in Kentucky, both of
Yep.
my grandfathers are from Alabama.
No
My
way.
dad's dad was born and raised in Leeds, right there outside of Birmingham.
Yep.
So same hometown as Charles Barkley. He
Nice.
moved to Kentucky to work in the coal mines at 17, like in
Wow.
1932, and that's how the Alabama to Kentucky thing. My mom's dad is from Perry County, a little town called Marion. So
Okay. Yep.
we'd go down there, we'd go to Selma, would go out. So I know about some Alabama
You
now.
sure do. Look
Yeah.
at you. I'm impressed. Yeah, my hometown is called Deetsville.
Okay.
That is not made up. It is an actual town. Of course, if you're from there, you call it Deetsville. You don't say
Yeah,
Deetsville. You know what I
that's
mean?
right.
It's Deetsville.
Mhm.
And actually, it's the hometown that Kirby Smart was raised in,
Okay.
which is always my claim to fame. I'm like, well, I'm from the same hometown as Kirby Smart, so we're making good people, clearly. But yeah, his dad. His late father, unfortunately, he passed last year, but he coached my dad in high school. So
Wow.
pretty cool fun fact, and I've connected with Coach Smart over that because it is such a small town. I graduated high school with 24 kids. It is
Man.
ridiculously small. But
Mhm.
then I went to Auburn where, I would be in lecture halls of 300 kids. So I kind of got both experiences, which was cool. And I'm really, really grateful for the way I grew up. My parents actually still live in my hometown. And every time
Mhm.
I go back, it is truly like the definition of peace. Like it centers me.
Mm.
But obviously, a career in sports television was going to send me all over, and I have enjoyed every bit of that. I love living in Nashville now, but I always enjoy going back home.
Absolutely. There's no
Yeah,
place like it for real.
no kidding.
So this carousel, this coaching carousel, all this stuff. I got to start with us. We came in late or maybe on time.
True,
We fired our coach the old fashioned way after the season, and
true. There's that.
and all the panic and angst about who you're going to get, and so many SEC jobs are higher profile in Kentucky. True,
Sure.
and to their credit, they were 14 and a half hours. They went from moving on from Mark Stoops to Will Stein is now, the wide rep last night at the Carolina game,
Yeah.
official introductory presser and getting welcomed at the Nutter practice facility. So your thoughts on that one first?
I mean, I'm still dizzy from this carousel. It has just been madness, but I think it is so wild, the reality that Kentucky was essentially last to all of this madness. You literally fired your coach in the 11th hour of this entire thing. You have your guy. Penn State fired their coach in October and still doesn't have a freaking coach. Like,
Yeah.
it is baffling the discrepancy of some of these processes. But I feel a multitude of things with the Kentucky firing. It honestly kind of reminded me of when Auburn parted ways with Gus Malzahn. It's one of those where you look at it and you can recognize that it was time and it felt inevitable. And it obviously the last loss, 41 points, a shutout to
Yeah.
Louisville. It really kind of felt like the decision was made in that truth. But I really hope that Mark Stoops is not remembered for his last effort. I hope he's remembered for everything that he did, because what he inherited is a very different program than what Will Stein is inheriting. And
Yeah.
it's because of Mark Stoops. And I also recognize that so many of those coaches from that era, because he was the longest tenured in the SEC prior to his departure. Now that is Kirby Smart. But so
Mhm.
many of those coaches, it's not that their methods aren't working anymore, but it truly is such a different world now than when they were at their height. And I don't know that it necessarily is the best fit for how a lot of them learned coaching styles. Like, it's ultimately why Nick Saban got out of it. He doesn't
Yeah.
like the world that it is right now. And so I think guys like Mark Stoops, some of them that have been in it for a long time, the methods that they believe in and the type of coaching that they grew up on, it is a bit of an antiquated formula now, which is right, wrong, or indifferent. It's just the reality. So it did look like an equation that was no longer working, and this season was really bad. I mean, last year for you guys was tough, and so this year continuing a down, and it wasn't just on the field. There was some off the field stuff that I didn't love to see, and it really kind of felt like the wheels had fallen off a little bit. And when you get get that sense you really have no choice but to create change. And you hope that the change that you create is a new spark and a new energy. It's the only way to fully turn the page on what was. And I think Will Stein provides that. I think he gives a new spark and a new energy that hasn't been in Lexington, not because Mark Stoops was wrong, but just because it's different. And so I like it. It was very interesting to me, though, I got to say, because John Sumrall's always been tied to this. And it has been speculated that if and when Mark Stoops steps away or is fired, that Kentucky's first call would be John Sumrall as an alum and as a very, a name that was gaining popularity very quickly in coaching cycles. And so the fact that it happened right after John Sumrall's new job in the SEC was announced was also kind of a caveat to this thing. Had Kentucky done it earlier, would John Sumrall be in Lexington? But I really think for all parties involved in this chaos, Vinny, I really get a sense that everybody got the right guy. As crazy as it's been, and I know Ole Miss fans don't love that, but Lane Kiffin to LSU makes sense. I think if we take the emotion out of it, the fit makes sense. So that I'm fine with. And John Sumrall at Florida, Alex Golesh at Auburn, Ryan Silverfield at Arkansas, Pete Golding is the right answer for what's going on in Oxford, and Will Stein for you guys. I think that as dramatic and chaotic and dizziness inducing as it's been, I think a lot of the fits make sense. And I want the best for Coach Stoops in whatever is next for him. But I'm really optimistic about what Will Stein could bring to Lexington. And I think it's time for that to happen.
Yeah. Going back to Coach Stoops, Kentucky's only had 4 10-win seasons in its history. I'm a little bit older than you, Taylor. I was born in 1977. So they went 10-1 that year.
Wow.
I pulled up the schedule. The last game against Tennessee for win number 10, I was 16 days old when that happened.
Oh my gosh.
So my
you don't
dad,
remember that one.
No. I mean, but technically it was in my lifetime.
Yes.
So, my dad would tell me about, Derek Ramsey and Art Steele and all those guys that are on that team, and got to meet some of those guys and have them on the podcast, and which is really cool.
That is cool.
And so, 40 years later, Mark Stoops, I tweeted this the other day, Mark Stoops allowed us to see some 10-win seasons for ourselves.
That's true.
And so he'll always be appreciated for that. Things got a little sideways. There were some 7-5s that should have been 9-3s.
You're right.
He said it. He said it himself. We're 2 plays away from 9-3. I'm like, well, God dog it. We gotta make those 2
plays.
Get
those 2 plays. I hear you.
So it got sideways. The Louisville game, the Vandy game the week before that, that was the writing on the wall. But definitely, wish him the best, exactly like you said. You knew going forward it would have to be an offensive guy because Rich Brooks was a defensive guy.
Yeah,
the Joker Phillips thing didn't work out. Stoops was a defensive guy for almost a decade and a half. So the fan base was wanting to see offense. Those of us that remember how Mummy and Tim Couch, you couldn't stop anybody, but you could light up the scoreboard.
Right.
And so hopefully the same thing happens with Will Stein, and he's got ties to the program, the ties to the state, and all that good stuff. As far as Sumrall, had Stoops gone to A&M, had that materialized, I think Sumrall would have
been the call. Yeah.
If Mitch Barnhart makes a move maybe last year, Sumrall might still be on the board. But the come up just got too big. He got on everybody else's radar by winning at Troy right there beside Auburn and then Tulane. And and these other jobs are, like we said, more higher profile than UK.
Yeah.
But I said it the other day, call me crazy. There's so much movement now. Florida hopes, some of the Florida fans are tripping, but maybe he stays down there and becomes Steve Spurrier 2.0 and he's beating us like Spurrier used to.
Sure.
Maybe it doesn't work out. Maybe Stein stays here 15 years. Maybe it doesn't work out. These guys could, outside of some heinous scandal that you can't come back from.
Right.
As long as, if you're just losing more than you should, guys move around and, you get part ways and you become a DC for a while and you get another shot at it. Dan Mullen's name was, floating around here when this search began for a little bit as a retread. A lot of fans weren't happy about it. I
Yeah.
mean, because it's not the same Mullen that was with Dak and coming in here
Yeah.
top 5. A retread John Sumrall, I think, would still cause some infatuation
Mhm.
as long as it wasn't, like I said, if you're not down there with got Aaron Hernandez and stuff and having
Real
terrible
chaos.
things happen
Yeah.
on your watch, he could still down the road maybe still be on the board. That's all I'm saying. Call
No,
me crazy, but
you're 100% right, because I also think the reality for him in Gainesville, and I know he's a very competitive guy, and he intends to live up to expectation. But the expectations in Gainesville are to return to championship caliber football. And so it kind of could be similar to an LSU situation where, hey, thanks for the 9-win season, 10-win season, but you're not getting us to a title. And so you're out. And
yeah.
it doesn't mean it's a slight against him, and it won't tarnish his coaching chops at all. It just
Mhm.
wasn't what they're setting out to do. I think the same reality exists for Lane Kiffin, which is insane because of how high of demand he's been in. But they have made it very clear in Baton Rouge that their intention is to win titles. So if Lane doesn't afford that to them in the next 4 years, we're having different conversations about Lane Kiffin as well. So no one in this is super comfortable, even though you feel like there's so much hype around some of them. The proof is going to be in the pudding. The amount of wins you put up, your playoff chances, and ultimately titles for programs like Florida and LSU is what they're looking for. So I think that Summerall to Florida is a good fit, but I totally hear you. There is a world in which that potential comeback home opens up again.
You miss on a recruit, and 2 years later he comes back to you in the
Mm-hmm.
portal. And as long as you don't burn the bridge with that kid, if you still cool and everything's good, and
Yes.
it didn't work out where he went initially, it happened with Wandale Robinson here. He went to Nebraska instead of Kentucky. A couple years later, he comes back and catches 100 passes from Will Levis, and you're beating Iowa in the Citrus Bowl on New Year's Day. It, it's just the way stuff is now.
Oh, yeah. It's like exes, Vinny. They always come back eventually. You
That's
know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. This is no different. You're right,
They
Taylor.
realize what they had,
Yep.
you
It's
know?
no different.
I mean, I think all of these are going to be super compelling to follow, especially for three of these guys that have familiarity with one another in the American Conference, all three getting their shot in the SEC the
Yeah.
same year. And they're all
Mhm.
going to play each other next year. They've got to kind of make that jump in the same year. So many storylines that are going to be super compelling to follow. And, will Penn State get a head coach? That's going to be compelling to follow too.
It sure will. It sure will. So my question for you is, I don't know how your assignments work. Are you trying to pull rank because LSU goes to Oxford? Are you trying to be on the sideline for that one, or how are they going to decide who's there and all that kind of stuff? And
Vinny, I would have to pry that out of Holly Rose's hands. Like, please. No, I know where I rank in the hierarchy, and games like that solely exist for the Holly Rose of the world. And I hope one day I am at that echelon of reporter, but I got to pay my dues a little bit longer. But I mean, you want to talk about friction and tension and mustard bottles and golf balls being thrown everywhere. I mean, everyone in Oxford better wear helmets that night because it is going to be intense. Their security is going to have to be beefed up because these people they don't just feel slighted. These people are pissed. So,
Mhm.
and look, LSU fans are a little rowdy as they come, even when they're happy, they're rowdy. So that game won't be for the faint of heart. I'll tell you
Yeah.
that much.
I was listening. I think Bomani Jones. He said they still sell D batteries. He said because they're going to be a run on D batteries before that game.
100%.
So
100%.
boombox.
Emotions will be high that
Yeah,
evening.
absolutely,
Crazy.
absolutely. So as crazy as this has been, before I let you go, what was something maybe coming into the season? One or two things that you were certain was going to happen. Well, I called this, I called that, and all the craziness happened. But there was a couple things in August that you're like, this is going to happen. Blah 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 blah. That you nailed.
Okay. That's a good question. I will say, not to toot my own horn, but the first time I ever covered John Sumrall was in 2022, when he was at Troy. And I tweeted in 2022, if I'm a at the time it was still Power 5. If I'm a Power 5 AD, I am keeping my eye on John Sumrall. Like, he is one to watch. Flash forward to 2025, he is one of the hottest names in the coaching cycle in the Power 5, Power 4, and specifically the SEC, which we can argue all day long, but it's the highest level of college ball. So I just had a really strong inkling that guy was on a fast track to a Power 4 opportunity, and it's cool to see that come to fruition, because a lot of my job is to have certain reads based on the access that I get. Like, what a shame to have great access and then not be able to decipher, good takes off of it. And I have to be very perceptive of people that I interact with. And so that was cool to see. But I also, and I hope no one comes for me for this, I felt very certain that the Texas hype was too much. I just did not understand in the preseason, why are we putting them at number one? Why are we putting a Heisman in Arch Manning's hand? This thing is going to need an adjustment period. Now, down the stretch, they look much better. Don't get me wrong. This team, there is an argument for them to be in the playoff. Do I think that I lean that way? No. But they're right there on the bubble. I think if we're a 16-team playoff, they're in. But I thought that the hype and the real conviction that people had that Texas was going to be in the championship and Arch was going to be a Heisman finalist in this first year was ridiculous. Like, I was outspoken about it, that everybody was getting far too ahead of themselves with Texas, and it could have ended up being their detriment. And I do think in ways it was. I mean, the weight of the world was on their shoulders to start the season, and I think they played like that.
That's a good point. And I don't, I saw Sark campaigning, as every coach worth his salt should. But you got drilled at Florida, and Kentucky should have beat you.
I know.
And honestly, and so those are kind of, to me, too much to overcome. Even though you got 3 losses and you got it together, and you beat A&M and ruined their undefeated season, which that's a must for that rivalry. But
I know. It ends for me with the loss to Florida, which is super unfortunate. And I know Sark wants to overcome that by saying, hey, we chose to go start the season against Ohio State, which I absolutely commend them for. And we all want to see that more. We want to see these power conferences play each other and not feel like that's potentially going to be your detriment for a postseason run. The same way that we don't want to see you penalized for playing an extra game for your conference title. So that conversation comes back into play this year as well. But for me, the loss to Florida, because of how close so many of these resumes are, like a Vanderbilt that also has 2 losses, and you've got the head-to-head. But to me, their 2 road losses against Alabama and Texas by narrow margins, I can justify more than Texas losing to Florida. So that, and these arguments and resumes are just too close that it does come down to the nitty-gritty details for me. So I think that those conversations are going to be interesting. I can take both of those over Miami's argument, though, because Miami's strength of schedule, I just can't. I don't think that that's the same argument. So,
yeah, I'm with you. Speaking of conference title games, is it going to be Bama, Georgia? Where you leaning this time? It's going to be the same result, different day, or does Kirby actually, kind of get this little monkey off of his back? That
I know. What is that? It is so bizarre. I am picking Georgia in this one. I think the last time I looked, the line was 2.5, Georgia. So it's close. And Alabama's got to make sure it's close, because here's the thing. I think a loss still puts them in. A beatdown, I don't think does. I think if Alabama gets crushed by Georgia, if it is a convincing Georgia win, I think the committee is going to have a really hard time putting Alabama in, even though we all know they want to. And they don't want to set that precedent that losing a conference title is going to kick you out. Meanwhile, Ole Miss and Texas A&M, who missed out of the conference title game because they slipped, are sitting at home getting healthier, not playing an extra game, and automatically get in. So it's a slippery slope, don't get me wrong. But if Alabama limps in that game, because they were limping out of the Iron Bowl, let me tell you that. I mean, Ty Simpson took a ton of hits. Jam Miller left on crutches. I don't think he's going to be available. Cuevas has been out for weeks. Ryan Williams was a non-factor, so I don't know if he's got an undisclosed injury that that he's dealing with. If that is what they showcase and Georgia runs all over them in Atlanta, you've got far too many teams on the bubble and two group of 5 teams that we're now considering because the ACC has been so lackluster that Alabama is going to make it an uphill battle for the committee to put them in. So Alabama needs this to be close if they do lose, or obviously a win and control your own destiny. I am leaning Georgia in this, though. I have felt like in November, and it didn't have all the fireworks in the Georgia Tech game, which I thought was interesting, but I have felt like in November, the team picked it up a notch and the offense looked more. I mean, Gunnar Stockton's got like a 70.2% completion percentage. He's playing very efficient ball. They've got big playability. Zachariah Branch, I mean, even in the return game, he can flip a field so dang fast. So I think that Georgia's really tapped into another level in November. And one thing that they have done all season is survive when their back is against the wall. Even the Georgia Tech game, I would say that that's the case. But I mean, you're in overtime in Rocky Top. You were down majority of that game to start the season. You claw your way back. A very dramatic game in Jordan-Hare against Auburn. They fight their way back. This team is mentally sound. And I think for whatever reason, Alabama hasn't showcased that in the month of November. And they have shown more weaknesses as of late. And that's kind of the opposite. You want to be peaking right now. And I don't feel like Alabama is peaking right now. So I lean Georgia, but Georgia's got to figure out a pass rush. I don't know where the heck that's been this season. That is typically so characteristic of a Georgia team, specifically a Kirby Smart Georgia team. And Ty Simpson is radically different when pressure's in his face. I mean, every quarterback is to a degree, but his numbers big time drop when pressured. So Georgia's got to figure out a way to generate some pass rush so that Alabama's passing attack doesn't completely start kicking into high gear. And if they do, I think Georgia's able to take care of it.
I kind of lean Georgia too. For some reason, it's just kind of finally time for them to break through.
Think.
You know, it's just the only hiccup on his resume. So I'm leaning Georgia with you.
Yeah.
My thing, look, we everybody talks about Lane and the LSU thing. You know, he wanted his cake and to eat it too, and all that kind of stuff. If Kalen DeBoer isn't careful, Lane's going to be looking at Tuscaloosa before he even unpacks in Baton Rouge. That's all I'm saying.
Vinny, I think Baton Rouge would explode. Like, I think actual, like, World War III would start in the Southeastern Conference, but it would be so Lane. I mean, at this point, I don't put anything past the man, you know? Yeah. And I said a few weeks ago, what if it's part of why Lane is dragging his feet with this decision and he keeps trying to buy time? What if he wants to know if Tuscaloosa is a real option? I mean, it's not a foregone conclusion that he would not have another chance at it. And it's not a foregone conclusion that Kalen DeBoer wants to stay in Tuscaloosa. I know Alabama fans think that they are the pinnacle for everyone, but I'm not convinced that he loves the fit there as much as they're not convinced he is the right fit. Yeah. So if that marriage is super unhappy and he's got an opportunity to go elsewhere and the season's over, I'm not convinced it wouldn't happen.
I mean, Saban did it. You know, Lane would. Look, LSU is oblivious to Lane's history now that he's there.
But well, you always think you're the one that's going to change the guy's toxicity. You know what I mean? You always think you're going to be able to change them. I got news for you, LSU. If it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck.
Yeah. So, I mean, the man just has a wandering eye, and I get it. I get especially with, you know, the part about his dad and wish his dad was there to get. Look, I wish I've lost my dad as well. I completely get that.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, this isn't your first time making a move and changing jobs and change of scenery. You've had plenty of experience doing this. You were 35 as the coach of the Raiders, you know, so all these moves and everybody, the dude lands on his feet and all this and always has. So you've had to weigh these things out before. So it's not like this was your first time. That's
exactly. Like you didn't know how it works. Yes, you do. And continuing, I know it's very him and it's cheeky and at times we love it, but even all of the social media activity, you played into the people in Oxford believing that you were going to stay. Like in all of the pomp and circumstance, you're going to tweet about recruits, hashtag come to the sip, as if
Yeah.
you're staying. Like
Mhm.
you exacerbated their belief that you were staying. So
Yeah.
while I understand him taking the job, I really do, and I think it makes sense that he would coach LSU. And I mean, I'm sorry if anyone wants to throw $90 million at me, I'm considering it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like none of us are beyond that. It's the way in which all of it went down, the troping on social media, the leaning into a variety that made three places feel so certain that you were heading their way. But it is something, I've said this on a few shows, but the way you get them is the way you lose them. So LSU, you
Mm.
can't get too freaking comfortable.
Yep. Exactly. You nailed it. You nailed it. So what's next on SEC? Oh, SEC State of Mind for you and JK.
Well, we've kind of been led by whatever the heck is happening around us. I mean, this year in particular, you go in with like a rundown of show, and then breaking news happens right before we start recording. So never know. But every week we obviously break down the games. So next week we'll do a deep dive on the SEC championship result, as well as the playoff, which will definitely know the brackets and the matchups and everything on Sunday, which will be awesome. You got to assume at least one SEC school is going to host a first round playoff game, which is awesome. So we'll
Mhm.
get into all of that. Obviously, these coaching staffs continue to take shape now that the head guy is at the helm. So those are always news and notes that we follow, and we'll get into some basketball now that football is winding down a little bit. So no shortage of action in this conference. That's for dang sure.
Absolutely. So they're on the Believe Network just like we are. So go and give them a subscribe, a rate, a review, just like you do for us here at Believe in Kentucky. Check out the YouTube. You can watch or listen wherever you listen to your podcast, that whole thing. So Taylor, it's an honor to finally have you. Appreciate it so much, and definitely got to get you on again sometime when your schedule allows you to do so.
Literally anytime. It was such a joy to come on here as well. And I so appreciate you having me.
So we appreciate it again. So we'll put a bow on it this time, y'all. It's another episode of Believe in Kentucky on the Believe Network. For Taylor, Beth Davis, this is Vinny Hardy. Go Cats, and we'll holler at y'all next time.